Translated from Hindi, मैं क्या हूँ? Pandit Shriram Sharma Acharya. Translated by Shivi Chandra, Jerry Richards, Shikha Saxena, Steve Schneider. 1940, Hindi edition, मैं क्या हूँ? 2008, translated English edition, What Am I? Publisher, Shri Vedmata Gayatri Trust, Shantikunj, Haridwar, Uttarakhand 249411. Visit us online, awgp.org.
Chapter 1 Koham, काच में शक्ति, कै देश व्याय मागातो, कै काल कानी मित्रानी, इतन चिंत्या मुहुर्मो. Chanakya Niti 4:18. What am I? What is my source of strength? The place, time, needs, means of resources, and friends for me? These are some questions that one must try to contemplate constantly. Wise men of every age have discovered the same form of absolute knowledge, the knowledge of the self. There is no need for any other kind once this is attained. Man is not able to live happily because of his entanglement in superficiality and ignorance of his true self. Within each human being is unlimited wealth, an unimaginable source of energy. The only reason for his hardships and sorrow is ignorance of this true self. When he realizes it, his sorrow will disappear and he will ask, Naham diho jan mrityu kutume, Naham pranek shutpai pase kutume, Naham cheta shoka mohau kutume, Naham karta bandha moksha kutume, Ityupnishad. Sarvsar Upanishad 21. I am not the physical body, so how can I be born or die? I am not the body fire, so how can thirst and hunger control my existence? I am not the mind, so how can grief and confusion affect me? I am not the doer, so how can I be thought of as bound or liberated? I am not the physical body, so how can I be born or die? I am not the body fire, so how can thirst and hunger control my existence? I am not the mind, so how can grief and confusion affect me? I am not the doer, so how can I be thought of as bound or liberated?
The real you is not the body. When one sees his identity as part of an eternal being, he has acquired true knowledge. Only then can he utilize the resources of the physical world in a proper manner. No matter how one looks at it, knowledge of the self is the highest and most useful knowledge of all. When asked about himself, a person will often identify as a professional, a person of status, a follower of a religious faith, etc. Upon further inquiry, he will provide details such as his place of residence, citizenship, etc. These are far from casual. They make up what he believes to be his real self. He is so fixated on his body that he considers the body and the self one and the same. In actuality, heritage, race, profession, and status relate only to the physical body, and that body is only a garment or instrument of the real self. Illusion and ignorance cause one to identify only with the body. Consequently, one equates the welfare of this transient body with that of the eternal self, which in turn makes life a perpetual flux of turbulence, anxiety, and pain. When the true self acquires a body, it never becomes that body. But when it departs, the now dead body begins to decay. Physically speaking, it is the same, yet without the true self it is useless. Therefore, although the self does take on a body, it continues its independent existence. That independently existent entity is called the soul. And this is what a person truly is. What am I? In truth, I am that soul. Everyone seems to know intuitively that the soul and the body are two different things. Even in speech, people say my body signifying that they are the possessors of the body and not the body itself. Hardly anyone doubts the independent existence of the soul. But although the common man may accept this principle of differentiation, his behavior reflects otherwise. He behaves as though he is inseparable from the body, as if the pains and pleasures of the body are those of the true self. Close observation of his thoughts, speech, and actions reveals that they all pertain exclusively to his identification with the body. He thinks, speaks, and acts only on its terms. When he says I, he means his body. The body is the home and the temple of the soul. Hence, it is both proper and necessary to look after its health, cleanliness, and maintenance. However, one must never identify exclusively with that body, that is, mistake the residence for the resident. Because of this false and mistaken identity, man loses sight of the real interests of the soul. And due to this lost sight of the true interests of self, the labyrinth of life makes him ruthless and dry.
The interests of the soul and body are different. Since the soul and the body are two different entities, their interests are also different. The body is governed by the senses, the 10 faculties of perception and action, along with the mind. These are perpetually focused on fulfilling one's bodily needs, causing one to act accordingly and immerse himself in pursuit of various sensory pleasures. Even concepts such as status, wealth, fame, and authority are aspirations of the mind. One's entire life can be spent in pursuit of these. But when these insatiable desires become cravings, a deluded person frantically attempts to satisfy them by any means possible. This is the primary cause of most sinful activities. Most people spend their entire lives trying to acquire food, shelter, and sensory pleasure, centering their lives around the body and activities associated with it. If this is all there is to life, what is the difference between humans and animals? The smallest increase in the intensity of desire prompts people to unfair means, making them reckless. People with such traits make life hellish not only for themselves, but for others as well. Lust and greed are powerful and evil traits. The more they are fed, the more desire grows, and the more worries and anxieties multiply. The momentary pleasure gained is followed by disenchantment, fatigue, and unhappiness. At some level, one knows that the present gratification will not last long, its end and the imminent sensation of loss create a vicious cycle. Such a perspective only drags one toward immorality, suffering, and turbulence. Nevertheless, he keeps attempting to find true happiness in the material world. Real success and prosperity lies in remaining conscious of one's true identity. When man identifies with the Atma, true self, soul, his aspirations and inclinations will naturally begin to follow the path of self-discipline that provide true contentment. When a person commits immoral acts such as theft, violence, adultery, and deception, he experiences a feeling of uneasiness, he shakes, and his blood pressure heightens. This happens because these actions are against the natural tendencies of the soul. The unease is the reaction from the soul. Immorality by its very nature is contrary to the soul. On the other hand, acts of virtue involving altruism, kind-heartedness, and discipline provide great inner satisfaction. Virtuous acts also provide light-heartedness, cheerfulness, and exhilaration. This signals that these acts are in accordance with the interests of the soul. Those who recognize these signals and act accordingly are not interested in gaining anything by unfair means and, consequently, cannot perform immoral acts. These virtuous acts bring peace and joy to the soul and influence the course of its journey after it leaves the body. Therefore, the interests of the soul lie in living virtuously. On the other hand, the body only considers its well-being in terms of physical gratification. Unfortunately, most human beings spend their entire lives in the pursuit of appeasing these urges, and in this process they experience moral decay as these urges are fulfilled by unfair means. No doubt such a lifestyle bestows fleeting pleasures upon the body and mind, but being against the natural tendency of the soul, it ultimately gives rise to pain in this world and the next. It is inevitable that the body will undergo hardships in upholding virtue for the soul's welfare. Unless strictly disciplined against sensual indulgence, it cannot properly perform virtuous acts. This implies not only that the body and soul's interests are different, but that they actively work against one another. Complete focus on bodily pleasure is not what the soul wants, and in order to break away from this and act in the soul's true interests, it takes strict discipline of the body and mind.
Self-realization is reflected in one's behavior. There are two kinds of people in the world: those who are solely engrossed in the body and those who are conscious of the soul. The former do not care for the soul, and they spend their entire lives in the pursuit of material comfort. Such lives are no different than those of animals. They may discuss nobility and ethics, but their interests remain focused on self-aggrandizement within the walls of selfish interests in both the present and the next world. At times, they use religiosity as a facade for acquiring fame, to gain public acclaim, or to prove superiority, but their minds are always preoccupied with the pursuit of physical pleasure and ego bolstering. On the other hand, one sees a great difference in the attitude of a person who recognizes and wants to act in accordance with the true interests of the soul. Sensory indulgence is like child's play to him and loses its charm. As self-awareness dawns, he realizes that the body is merely a garment, an instrument for self-expression in the visible world. He realizes that human life should not be wasted in the trivialities of self-glorification or indulgence in comfort. He identifies only with the Atma, and all his endeavors are directed towards its joy. He single-mindedly uses every moment of his life to cultivate the soul's attributes. Whereas a bodily obsessed person leads a miserable existence, a soul-conscious person follows a life path conforming to the highest ethical and spiritual standards, standards that lead to abiding peace and joy.
The rewards of self-realization. One does not become unduly influenced or agitated by the routine ups and downs of life when he is aware of the immortal soul. The extremes of profit and loss, life and death, union and separation, respect and humiliation, attachment and aversion produce only negligible reactions in a soul-conscious person. He takes these as routine, natural fluctuations of the ever-changing world. The man of awakened awareness knows that events proceed according to an ultimate plan and not individual desires and dislikes. He views the passing of incidents like a detached spectator and is neither elated by pleasant events nor distressed by unpleasant ones. By doing this, he escapes the strains of bodily conscious life, which under intense pressure may drive a lesser man to even commit suicide. It is clear that the key to living a life of nobility and dignity is to rise above bodily obsession and awaken to the reality of the soul. This gives one's life purpose, which is why spiritual masters have always given the utmost priority to the disciplines of self-realization. Upon contemplation of the question, "What am I?" the only reasonable answer is, I am an immortal soul. And the more one believes in this, the purer his thoughts and actions become. The disciplines in this book are meant to inspire a sincere sadhaka, spiritual aspirant, on this path to self-realization. A person is neither his body or mind, both of which are only instruments of the soul. When he realizes this, he is freed from their bondage. A fable explains this. A monkey happens to come across a pitcher full of nuts. It puts its paw in and grabs a fistful, but is now unable to extract its paw from the narrow mouth of the pitcher. The monkey begins to cry in panic, believing that the nuts are holding its paw. It is only able to remove its paw when it realizes the truth and releases the nuts. Likewise, a man suffers when he clings to the carnal weaknesses of lust and anger. The moment he exercises his conscious willpower, he is freed from the bondage of ignorance. Another story relates the same principle. A lion cub is brought up among lambs and assumes their natural timidity, until he sees his reflection in a pond and is able to assume his true qualities of confidence and strength. This is precisely what occurs when a person discovers that his true identity is the immortal soul. This discovery brings complete relief from the ego-inflicted sufferings and desires that torment us at every moment. There are numerous fields of knowledge in this world, but the one that transcends all others is known as Atma Gyan, or the knowledge of the self. This can be said to unravel all the mysteries of life. It is true that through the study of science, man has found great sources of power, such as electricity and nuclear reaction. But by delving into the innermost spirit, the source of universal power, wise men have discovered the nectar of Atma which transcends the limitations of the material world. Experiencing this nectar makes man truly wise, bestowing him with mastery over mental and material force and energy. Because of this, it can be concluded that it is essential for a person to know his true self. He must repeatedly ask himself, "What am I?" and discover the answer through analysis, contemplation, and introspection. Upon knowing the true self, he will gain the judgment to discriminate between what is beneficial for his well-being and what is not. When one is aware of the soul, things that seemed beneficial to the former, hedonistic mindset are now seen as useless and harmful. And likewise, pursuits that once seemed pointless and tedious become a source of joy, leading one closer to the goal of self-realization and truth.
The goal of spiritual disciplines. Many people wish for spiritual progress, but are not able to reach it because of deficient or incorrect training. The goal of spiritual disciplines is to jolt man out of his materialistic slumber so that he can awaken to his true identity as an immortal soul. Just as holistic treatment is necessary to attack a disease at its roots, spiritual disciplines must treat a person at several levels. Conventional practices such as philanthropy, fasting, chanting, anusthan, and yajna are good initial steps, but they are not the whole of spiritual disciplines. Such rituals enhance virtue and purity of mind, but they do not lead to true enlightenment. True enlightenment is realizing the nature of the material world as illusory and transient. The purpose of this book is to awaken the reader to a consciousness of his true self. There is no other road or shortcut to mukti, liberation. A person cognizant of his spirit lives a virtuous life, and vice and sorrow do not trouble him. It is hoped that with the help of these spiritual disciplines, a person can rise to a higher level of self-realization. Once this paradigm shift is accomplished, His standard definitions of what he is and what belongs to him will expand to encompass the entire universe. He will feel that he has a greater responsibility to bear than simple care for himself and his family. As he continues his spiritual ascent, his sense of belonging will expand until, as if he is looking down from a great height, he understands that he is one with all existence. Everything will seem to be under his care. Just as one's field of vision broadens as one climbs a hill, so does his perspective upon self-realization. Bodily confines of egocentric I-ness will vanish from his sense of self. This concept can be understood better with an analogy. The air in a balloon can be considered the limited sense of self. If more air is blown into it, the balloon bursts and the air returns to the normal body of air in the atmosphere. In the same fashion, the expansion of the identity ultimately leads to the realization that it is connected with all creation. It was only the body or the balloon which was creating the illusion of an isolated existence. This is the vision of self-realization and the basic tenet of spirituality. Once a person glimpses this truth, he can never go back to the limited sense of self. Who would leave a cool river to return to a desert where he was dying of thirst? In verse 15:6 of the Gita, it is proclaimed, "To which having gone, they do not return, that is my supreme abode." Having experienced the joy of self-realization, who would return to a worldly abode? Who would turn back from a journey once the destination has been reached? In the following chapters, simple exercises for rising to a higher level of self-realization will be presented. As mentioned earlier, the expansion of the limited sense of self will eventually burst the balloon, and the seeker will know his unity with the Supreme Spirit. Some readers, disappointed by this meaning, may interpret self-realization as the goal of the recluse, considering it a path only for those seeking union with God. They may argue that spiritual disciplines are only for those interested in the afterlife, that a regular person's life is focused only on the current one, that the daily routine is filled with work and education and has no time or purpose allotted for any other such concerns. These readers may wonder how all of this assists one's current physical life. Such questions inevitably arise in today's world. Many treat the well-being of the self in this world and the next as two different considerations. In reality, they cannot be compartmentalized like this, for what pertains to one is intrinsically related to the other. These realms are inseparable, like two sides of the same coin. In short, self-realization is the most effective method for success in both this world and the next. All progress in this world goes hand in hand with its development, and a person in possession of this inner strength is capable of success in any area of human life. This is what is known as communion with God, knowing one's true self, appreciating the dignity of human life, and functioning in accordance with these principles. With this in mind, it makes sense to set self-realization as an active and worthwhile goal. It is a commonly known truth that there are two factors which are responsible for success in any endeavor known to man: honest appraisal of one's capacities and knowledge of the resources both available and required to complete the task. Nothing can be achieved without understanding these two variables.
Spiritual teachings say, the soul in you is indestructible. You are not ordinary, you are a magnificent creation of God. Do not feel weak in any respect nor beg for anything. You are immensely powerful. There are no limitations to what you can do. You have appeared in this world with potential that can undoubtedly overcome all obstacles on your way to success. Your capabilities are more powerful than the obstructions to be overcome. Success and happiness are your birthrights. Wake up. Identify your true self. Assess your means and resources and wisely go ahead towards the set goal. You will find that there is nothing you aspire to that is beyond your reach. You are the Kalpavriksha, the wish-fulfilling tree, and the Kamadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow of heaven. Not a bit of fear or disappointment was used in your pure creation. You are success personified. Come forward and take charge of what is rightfully yours. This book tells you that you are not merely a body, nor are you like any other species on earth. Instead, you are a manifestation of the attributes of God. The body and the mind are your tools. You are not a slave of your sensory desires or old habits. All these are yours, but they are not you. After learning this, you will recognize your true identity and will act in accordance with its natural tendencies. You will understand that the body is an instrument of the soul, the true self. Understand this distinction clearly and unambiguously. When man regards his body as the self, the soul cannot use the body effectively. The distinction between body and soul enables the soul to make use of the body as an instrument of self-growth. This is the task before man, a task that can be successfully accomplished by one who has clarity of vision and purpose. In Bhagavad Gita 250, this is called Yoga Karmasu Kaushlam, discipline in actions with ease, or in other words, perfect skill in works. Diligently aspire to be such a yogi. The purpose of this writing is to motivate you to realize the true place for yourself in this world and in the world beyond, and to make contributions which will lead you to the supreme goal of self-realization. This alone is the purpose of this instrument, this body. May God inspire you on this path.
Chapter 2 Nayam Atma Pravachnena Labhyona, Medhyana Bahuna Shrutena. Katha Upanishad 1-23. Mundaka Upanishad 3-3. The soul cannot be perceived by sermons, or through intellectual pursuit, or by listening to discourses on spirituality. The previous chapter may have inflamed your desire to learn about the entity we call the soul, after knowing which nothing else remains to be known. This is only natural. The body and soul are tied together. The former is composed of gross physical elements, but the latter is subtle beyond all imagination. When oil is added to water, it will always float to the top, for the molecules of oil are lighter than those of water. Hot air stays above cold air for the same reason. Flames rise, the gravitational pull of the earth does not stop them from rising. Similarly, in spite of its containment within the body, the soul, instead of becoming one with the body, strives to rise to a higher level of consciousness, as it is so much more subtle than the physical body. People say that they are pulled in all directions by sensory pleasures. This is simply not true. Without wisdom regarding how to attain true happiness, man quenches his thirst for happiness by throwing himself into sensory pleasures. If he experienced even a taste of the bliss inherent in the true self, would he run here and there chasing the mirage of happiness? As mentioned earlier, the soul can never exist as a mere constituent of the body, despite being contained within it. A person realizes something is missing, but cannot tell what it is. He is actually in search of his true self, but wanders through the material world in vain, without the knowledge of how to find it. His feeling of emptiness saddens him, but because he lives in an illusion, he cannot find the truth. People constantly complain about the fickle nature of the mind, but no one is able to explain it. In truth, the mind is this way because it is always searching for happiness, in the manner of a musk deer chasing an elusive scent. Imagine the peace it could gain if it realized that the scent is emitted from its own body. The mind is the same way. If one can only learn that everything he needs for happiness is within himself, he can attain peace, and his mind will be at rest. Self-realization requires a clear understanding of the true nature of the self, the physical body, and the resources available to one's own mind, and the integration of this understanding fully into the mind so it is never forgotten. It takes little effort to read a piece of literature and then talk endlessly about its theoretical aspects. One may claim to know more about the subject of this book than is written, and also put forth forceful arguments in favor of his view, pointing out myriad scriptural discrepancies. Mere reading does not make one a scholar. The scriptures themselves state that one cannot connect with the soul through machinations of the intellect. The purpose here is not to get into a debate on this subject. One who appreciates the subject and is interested in learning the true nature of self is welcome to try the exercises in this book, otherwise it is suggested that he not spend more of his valuable time reading further in it.
Begin with a clean slate. To climb to the peak of a mountain, one first has to reach the foot. Self-realization is an uphill task that follows a similar pattern. Imagine yourself at the threshold of the entranceway and forget all the progress that you may have made before. Start as a beginner. What you have learned so far is not incorrect or untrue, but in order to learn a new language, you cannot begin with its advanced writings, you must begin with its alphabet. Take a few steps back. By starting at the first steps, you will be able to climb that much faster. First ask yourself, what do I mean when I say I? After all, animals, birds, and other species do not have this concept other than in relation to their body. Like human beings, they feel pleasure, pain, and other sensations of the physical world, but their minds do not transcend the physical requirements of the body. For example, a donkey knows nothing about its load, why it bears a load, what its relationship is to the person driving it. It simply bears discomfort when overloaded and is satisfied when given food, but it does not react as a human being would. The body is the sole reality for the donkey and many other such species. Human beings have indeed acquired superior intellect in the course of evolution, but how many are aware of the reality of the self? Many do claim to be familiar with it, but there is a world of difference between actual awareness and simple discourse. Such people mechanically remember what they hear about the soul and repeat it in various discussions from time to time. There are also those who have never heard of any such thing as the soul and concentrate all their energy on temporary physical matters. Among such people, the dull become satisfied with crude means of enjoyment, while the so-called intelligent ones simply refine their methods of sensory indulgence. A poor laborer enjoys driving his animal-driven car just as much as a rich person enjoys his expensive car. The only difference is the refinement of the sensory pleasure. The reality is that whatever progress human intelligence has made is predominantly utilized to enable further sensory indulgence. For most civilized people today, the body is the reality of the self. Another obstacle to self-realization is that of false religion. Many people perfunctorily observe traditional rituals which provide only superficial satisfaction and have no relevance in the quest for self-realization. Acts such as philanthropy are regarded as virtuous, but do not actually lead to spiritual progress when there are expectations for fame and glory. Other rituals, such as yajna, sacrifice, and tapas, austerity, are considered an essential duty of all human beings, regardless of faith, but they do not in themselves bring about any sort of spiritual progress. These rituals do not, by themselves, take one any closer to the discovery of the indwelling soul. The Atma is so infinitesimally rarefied that it cannot directly interact with any material object. The soul is beyond the reach of rituals, empty philanthropy, or pilgrimage.
Access to Atma is through the mind. The means available to us for approaching Atma include the memory, mind, intellect, and heart. These need to be trained and developed into tools through spiritual disciplines for attaining self-knowledge. The soul is present through the entire body and has no fixed location which would enable one to physically reach it. As only the faculties of the mind are capable of revealing the stages of growth of the soul in evolution, the exploration of the secrets of the inner world of the mind is an essential aspect of spiritual searching. Just like the mind, intellect, etc. are the means to reach the Atma, the inner mental world is used to actually envision the true nature of it. The domain of the mind functions according to its own underlying principles, just like the external material world. Within moments, thoughts travel from New York to Switzerland. New York and Switzerland in mental imagery do not have a physical presence within the mind. Nevertheless, these mental impressions represent actualities which exist elsewhere. A shadow is as much a reality as the object of which it is a representation. The mind can imagine everything that can actually exist in substance and more. Hence, the realm of mind should not always be taken as an illusory world. A subtle consciousness, Sukshma Chetna, that controls all activities of the universe is present in the mind. An industrialist who wishes to expand to a foreign country makes the trip there first in his mind, gathering information, imagining his travel there, and envisioning the problems that might occur. He makes his plans based on this mental trip. Messages of the consciousness arise as intuitions in the mind. By entering its domain and reading body language, facial expressions, psychoanalyzing, and using polygraph testing, we can determine almost anything about the emotional state and reflex response of a person. However, such things are only the surface of the mind's conscious layers. Under these layers lie the hidden subconscious, subliminal, and superconscious domains which hold even greater capacities. For example, knowledge of the past, predictions about future, etc. come from these domains. All inspiration and guidance for a spiritual quest comes through a receptive, peaceful, and pure mind. A pure mind is one that receives its directives as intuitions. In the absence of these mental faculties, man would function like a robot. It is the mind that serves as the channel for access to the consciousness and the soul of man encased in the body.
The use of yogic practices for the control of body and mind. Now let us endeavor to enter the domain of the mind, examine the nature of the soul, and experience it firsthand with the help of powers that are inherent in the intellect. Every seeker throughout the world has had a similar outlook. Higher knowledge can only be experienced upon entering the realm of the mind with the help of the intellect. No one has been able to discover another path. The various types of yoga have all been developed to keep the body healthy. An essential first step before mind control exercises can be undertaken. I will advise you maintain good health with only simple exercises. In today's environment, it is neither advisable nor necessary to follow traditional ancient yogic practices. It would not be wise to ask you to do pranayam, intense breathing practices, if the surroundings are polluted. These worked for seekers of the past who lived in unpolluted environments, ate only fresh fruit, used unpolluted water, and observed celibacy. I would be committing a sin if I asked you to carry out these intense yogic practices. Today, there is a separate set of generally accepted norms for healthy living, all of which should be strictly adhered to, and a medical expert should be consulted if there is an illness that requires attention. For the present purpose, there is no need for prolonged treatment or training. Normal health and a relaxed, happy attitude are the only prerequisites.
Preparation for spiritual disciplines. Choose a quiet place, free of distractions. This is not always possible, but choose the best approximation, preferably the same place every day. Ideal places are forests, hills, and riverbanks. But if none of these are possible, select a small room without distractions. Sit comfortably, making sure not to strain yourself in any way. You do not need to stiffen your torso or cross your legs, as these may induce discomfort and disturb your mental peace. Relax your muscles. Let each part of your body remain loose, tension-free, peaceful, and at rest. A comfortable chair is suited for this, but lying flat on a bed with your head slightly raised will also do. You can even sit with your back resting on a wall with a cushion behind it. Whatever the posture, keep your body as loose as a ball of cotton so that the need to change positions does not arise. However, be careful to remain in a posture in which there is no likelihood of falling over while in a state of deep meditation. Sit this way for some time. In the initial stages, it will require a greater effort, but later, with practice, you will find it easier to relax regardless of your environment. This exercise is not meant to create a state of relaxation in which one becomes drowsy, daydreams, or becomes lost in imagination. This preparation for meditation has a specific purpose. Therefore, it must be practiced as directed. Later, this state of consciousness will become an integral part of the mind and will not require any willful effort. In difficult situations which give rise to fear, misery, pain, and stress, this equanimity of mind will become active without effort, and you will be able to pass through these crises with confidence and peace.
The soul as the nucleus of your world. In the meditative state described above, focus your thoughts on the nature of I. Try not to think about any external person, place, thing, or event. Conceptualize that your soul is an actual, independent entity, infinitely powerful, indestructible, and indivisible, the star around which your personal world continuously revolves, in motion as planets around their sun. Hold this image of a solar system in your mind. Establish your soul as the sun. Assure yourself that the objects around you are dependent on you, but you are not dependent on them, and although you provide the energy for their motions, they are not you. In a few days, such an awareness will become second nature. Do not think this picture is mere imagination. It is an exercise to help you understand that the laws of motion in nature apply to everything, from inert matter to human beings. The planets in the solar system revolve around the Sun, and this entire system in turn moves about the galaxy. Even your heart uses its consciousness and moves your blood in a circulation. All tangible things follow the laws of motion, sound, force, thought, and atoms all have their particular trajectories. Your soul is a nucleus of the energy and elements related to you, all of which revolve around you. When you fully understand this fact, you will notice a transformation in your outlook. You will clearly perceive yourself as a center of consciousness acting on everything related to you. You will find that your world, including all the material objects in it, are not an integral part of you, that although you live among them, they are completely separate from you.
The rewards of discovering the soul. A person who has truly discovered his inner self as the center of consciousness understands that he is related to the physical world, but does not lose himself in it. He is like a lotus flower which grows in the water but remains above it and unaffected by it. And when man considers himself a source of energy and consciousness, rather than a helpless creature, nature provides him with the tools to realize this image. If you regard yourself as a good-for-nothing physical being who takes pleasure only in the cravings of the flesh, your psyche will remain a cesspool of unholy tendencies. But when you become aware of the immense potential of your soul, you will display the attributes of your omnipotent heritage. Just as an adult outgrows the clothing of his childhood, you will outgrow the influence of vice. Your behavior and temperament will undergo dramatic changes. A small child does not mind soiling his clothes, but an adult hates to do so and feels embarrassed when it happens, even during sickness. Likewise, when a person becomes more spiritually aware, lower tendencies such as hatred, greed, and anger fall away from his nature like dry leaves. His higher attributes, such as philanthropy and compassion, grow in proportion to his spiritual progress.